Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. We're going to do a Google Classroom training today. But before we get started, I just want to say a few things. If you don't know me already, my name is Kenneth Chin. I'm the coordinator of instructional technology at OUSD, and I just joined central office this year. I was an OUSD elementary classroom teacher for the previous 4 years. I started in OUSD as a substitute teacher before that. And my wife has been an OUSD teacher for something like 15 years. She's the library prep teacher at MLA now. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to know that I'm always thinking about my work through the lens of a teacher. And I know that right now this is an incredibly stressful time for teachers. It's a hard time for a lot of us personally because of the stress of the situation, because of having to take care of kids or others, and just worrying about what's going to happen, and work-wise because of all the routines and the normal interactions with students that are not happening right now. And I know that a lot of teachers are getting a message that we need to shift to online or distance learning using technology. And online learning isn't what you've spent years getting good at and honing and becoming an expert in. We all know that we've got huge challenges around equity, even when things are normal. And this situation right now where online or distance learning is really the only option, it's just making those equity challenges even worse, okay? So I just want to send a message to everybody today about expectations around online learning going forward. So first of all, the idea that everybody is going to make a successful transition to online learning, it's just not realistic, right? Because even if we could get internet connected devices to every student, even if every teacher could get amazing online lessons in place, it's not going to work for every teacher and every student, because part of it is that some students just don't have the support at home. Part of it is that online learning just isn't going to work for some students, especially younger students. And a huge part of it is that online learning is it's just not a replacement for the experience that you create with your students in your physical classroom, okay? So really the only option for us right now is to do our best and to try to make online learning work for as many students as we can. And we are going to fall short. That's just the reality. But we have to be creative, and we've got to think about, okay, how can we reach our students the best that we can? And in a lot of cases, we're going to want to try to keep things as simple and as accessible as we can, right? So one thing I've been thinking about is that there are a lot of students right now, they can't do an interactive online lesson or a writing assignment on a computer, but a lot of those students might be able to look at a short video on a parent's phone once or twice a day. And that might be the most that some families can do right now. So we're all getting prepared for the idea that we might be out of school like way beyond spring break. It's definitely possible. So think of this time right now as a time to think through what will work best for you, communicate with your colleagues, collaborate with them, and start planning so that you can at least try to make online learning available to your students, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to get my script, share my screen. So just give me a second, I'll get that set up. And here we go. So let's talk about Google Classroom for online learning. Google Classroom is basically an online system for you to organize announcements, resources, and assignments for your class. So you can think of it as your blank canvas, and you're going to fill in your canvas with your own teaching content and style. So today, we're going to go step by step through building a class and some activities. So to get to Google Classroom, we go to classroom.google.com. And to create a class, we click on the plus sign up on the top right. What we want to do is to create a class, so we click on Create Class. Now I'm going to name this class Mr. Chin's third grade class, and that's the only required field. And we click on Create, and then there's the class. I'll just quickly show you how to change this picture. You click on Select Theme, and then choose something you like, and choose Select Theme. Now, how are your students going to join this class? Well, check out this class code, which is always on the top left here. You need to get that code to your students. You can either email parents, call them, or whatever method works for you. And students are going to go to classroom.google.com and then click on the plus sign. And remember, there's that option for join class. That's what they're going to choose. And they put in the class code and join. And that's it. They're students in your Google Classroom. And I have gotten some feedback that some teachers prefer this method of adding students to Google Classroom. Click on the plus icon on the people page and then enter emails one by one of students. And that way they don't need a code to join the classroom. Okay, so just in a moment, I'm going to walk us through how to add content to this Google Classroom. But let's jump ahead in time to show you how this classroom is going to look after we're done. And we'll look at the navigation. This first page is the stream page. Students will see this page. It's basically a list of everything that you put into the class. It's generally in the order you posted things with newest items at the top. Over here, we've got the classwork page, and students see this page as well. This is where you can organize materials, assignments, and questions, and you can also categorize them by topic. This here is the people page, and this has a list of all of the students in our sample class. Now here you can invite guardians if you've got an email, and you can also email students, but that is turned off for elementary students, just to let you know. Here we've got the grades page. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just want to let you know that the grade book is there. And then take a look at this gear icon up in the top right. That gets you to the settings. And here you can adjust the class details. You can change the name of your class and a couple of other options. Down here is general, and here you've got the class code. You can't change it, but you can reset it or hide it. And here, this is an important setting. Students can post and comment on the stream. So I like to get in there right away after I create a class and change this to only teachers can post or comment. Okay? Now, if you're using the gradebook feature of Google Classroom, this is the grading section where you set up your grading system. We'll talk about that just a little bit in a little while. Okay, let's talk about how to create classwork. We'll go to the classwork page, and if we click on the Create button, we get a drop-down menu with different options. And it's a really good practice to create categories or topics of classwork. So let's click on Topic. And we're just going to create some topics here. Reading, add that one. Go create another one. Math. And writing. You'll probably want to add topics of your own or more topics, but I just want you to get the idea. I'm going to move these around. You can just drag them. And then let's add some reading classwork. So I want to use Britannica School. That's a free resource for OUSD. So we're just going to create a material post. So clicking on that, just going to give it a title and call it Britannica School Animals. All right, now let's write some directions. Go to Britannica School Animals. Choose an animal and read the article about it. Be prepared to answer some questions about the animal you chose. And then finally, we want to add a link by clicking on this Add button here. And I've got a URL copied, which I'll paste here. Now over on the right, I just want to point out these options here. If you have multiple classes, for example, if you're a middle school or high school teacher, you want to create this post in more than one class, you can select that here. And then you can also click on this field that says all students and choose who you're going to share with. It's all students by default, but you can choose individual students for differentiation. Okay? And to make sure this post goes under the reading topic, click on reading under topic. And then click on post. There's the post right there. And we can click on it to expand it. That will have the same behavior for the students. Okay, so now I would like to add something related to that material. So I'll click on Create, and this time I'm going to choose Question. So click on that, and then I'm actually just going to write Animal Question up here just to give it a title. And then right down here, this is where I'll write the question. What are 2 things that you learned about the animal that you read about in Britannica school? And then I'd like to have a due date for this question. So I'll just choose Thursday here. And then actually I'm going to, let's put that in the reading topic. And then I'd like to turn off the students can reply to each other. And then I'll click on ask and that post it. And there it is. I'm just going to move the question underneath the material there. Just make it a little more clear. Okay. Now I'd like to add one more reading assignment. I'd actually like to assign students a reading log, a weekly reading log that they're supposed to turn in at the end of the week. So under Create, I'm going to click Assignment. And I've actually got a reading log that I created in Google Docs. So I'm going to give this the title, Reading Log, and put in some instructions underneath. And this is going to be due at the end of the week, so I want them to fill out their reading log and turn that in at the end of the week on Friday. And then I've got that Google Docs reading log also, so I need to attach that. So I'm going to click on Add, Google Drive, where I've got my reading log. I need to look for it. There it is, it's the first thing right there. Click on that, and then add that. And then this is really important. Take a look at the reading log here. So you can see this, they're supposed to fill this out actually in Google Docs, but how are they going to get their own copy? So we need to talk about that. This is the important thing I was talking about. You see where it says students can view on file right over here? That means that they're just going to see that file there. They can't do anything with it. I also don't want students to get edit file because they would do it all, edit the same file. What we want is make a copy for each student. Click on that, and that gives each student his or her own reading log. Then I'll assign that. Okay, so we've got some reading posts there. Let's work on math. So for math, I'm going to use assignments in another platform. You could use ST Math, Freckle, Khan Academy, but we just want to remind students about those assignments. So I've created a question here. Did you complete all of your Freckle math assignments? And you can choose to do a multiple choice answer for the question. I'm just going to make this yes or no. Just a little accountability. I can check in Freckle to find out if they did their assignments. And I'll give it a due date at the end of the week also. And then put that in math. Click. Turn this off. Students can see the class summary so they can have their privacy. And then go up to ask. Click on that. And then there's the assignment there under math. Now I'm going to click on create again. Now, you see this quiz assignment. If I click on quiz assignment, that just gives you a blank quiz. I don't want that. I'm going to click on assignment, but I do want a quiz that I've already created. I just want to show you how this works. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to call this math quiz. It's a second grade math review, just to review second grade math concepts. And I'm going to attach my quiz that I've got in my drive. Now, creating a quiz with Google Forms is a totally separate topic that needs its own training, but it's worth mentioning now because the integration with Google Classroom is awesome. So I just want to show you what this math quiz looks like. It's set up to be automatically graded, and then the grades can be instantly recorded in Google Classroom. Very cool feature. So that is quiz created with Google Forms if you want to learn more. And we'll just give this due date also, and topic, and assign it. Okay, so let's move on to writing. And let's look at how we can quickly create a writing assignment. We'll go to Create Assignment. And I'd like to have students write an essay about how life is different when they have to stay home during school closures. So I'll put some directions in there. And I don't have any kind of document to give to students, so I'm going to create one on the fly. So the first thing I'm going to do is just copy these instructions here because I want to use that in my document. And then I'm going to go to Create, Docs. When I click on Docs there, this is going to create a Google Doc that's going to be connected to this assignment. Okay, so I'm just going to do something quickly here. What do you miss about school? That's what we're going to title it. And then underneath, I'm going to paste those instructions. Just do a little formatting. And that's it. This is ready. Okay, so I can close this. And then that untitled document, that's going to update soon with the new title. And then remember that we need to make a copy for each student with this kind of assignment. So we go down and make a copy for each student. And then we need to just give it a due date. And that's it. We can assign that. Now look up here. I forgot to put that, give it a topic. So it's up at the top here. That's no problem. We can just grab it and drag it down. In fact, this whole page, it's really easy to just drag items around. Okay? So I'd like to create one more assignment, but this time I want to use the reuse post feature. If you've got a post that you've created before, or even if it's in a different class, you can do that. So click on reuse post. That's my list of all my posts in this class, but I'd like something that is in another class that I have. So I'm going to Maestro Jose's class. I want that right about the Taj Mahal assignment. I'm going to reuse that. And then it's going to show up just already made. It's already got the Google Doc and make a copy for each student. The only thing I need is a due date. I'm just going to show you what this looks like really quickly. This is called a hyperdoc. It's a doc that's got links, images, it's even got links to YouTube videos, and then there's a writing prompt down at the bottom. This is a fantastic way to use Google Docs. So then I'll give that a due date and assign it. So now we've got 3 topics and assignments in each one. Just going to move this up here a little bit. I'd rather have that up at the top. Now let's check out our stream. So this is the first page that opens up. On the left here, you can see upcoming assignments, and then everything is there. All of the posts are there. You can't reorder these really easily, but you can move anything to the top. That's the one way you can reorder things. You can also make announcements up at the top. You can either just write a message, which I'm going to do, or you can use that add feature, that add button to add an attachment. And those announcements are always pinned to the top. Okay, so let's take a look at how to set up grades quickly. We're going to click on the settings icon, the gear icon up here. Then we need to scroll down to grades. Now the default for overall grade calculation is no overall grade, but you can also click on that for a drop-down. And the total points option is just going to add points together for all of the classwork, and the grade will be calculated by dividing total points by total possible points. Weighted by category assigns weights to categories, and you can click on that more info to find out more about how those systems work. But it's really a pretty fully featured grade book. If I choose that weighted by category, then I need to add categories. I'm going to also turn on show overall grade to students. Then I need to go down to add grade category, and then I'm just going to quickly add some categories here. quiz is 15%, writing assignment is 25%. You can do it however you like, but just you need to make sure that it adds up to 100, and it'll show you how much you've got remaining. Then once you do that, you need to make sure that all of your assignments are actually assigned to grade categories. So if we go back to the classwork page, see these 3 dots. You can edit any post by clicking on those 3 vertical dots, clicking on edit, and then I'm just going to quickly go into each one, assign this to reading, and so on. So that's a summary of how you set up grades. And just as a reminder, grades are optional in Google Classroom, and during school closures, probably not appropriate, but you might want to do that when things get back to normal. Okay, let's take a look at how the student views Google Classroom. So right now I'm signing in as one of my students. This is not something you can do from Google Classroom, but let's just take a look so you can see what it looks like. You can see the stream page looks pretty similar. Upcoming assignments on the left. And then classwork page, that's also pretty similar. All of those assignments are there. And let's take a look at this Britannica school. Student is supposed to choose an animal here. Chooses poison frogs, reads about poison frogs, and then goes to the question. So the animal question asks, what are 2 things that you learned about the animal you read about? Click on View Question, and then the answer is typed here over on the right. And then turn in. And that's it. Let's take a look at the reading log. There's that, and the student can fill this in, and this is the student's own personal reading log. Let's take a quick look at this math quiz. So student takes the quiz, and it's going to be scored automatically because of the way we set that up. And then here's the essay, what do you miss about school? And this is the student's own copy. Student writes the essay, and then there's actually a turn in button up on the top right in Google Docs. So student can click on that. There's just one more step there, turn in. So that's basically what the student experience looks like. Let's look at how to review student work once that's done. We're going to fast forward in time. This is the end of the week. Students are supposed to have turned in everything. So let's take a look. So in the classwork page, let's take a look at that animal question, view question. And you can see we've got all of the answers are right there on that page. I can see there's one student here who didn't do that much, so I'd like to click into his work. So I'll click on his name over on the left. And then this is a space where I can add the comment and give him some feedback. Maybe encourage him to do a little bit more work. So I can do that. And he's going to see that, could work on it a little bit more. Let's click on this, what do you miss about school essay? If I click on view assignment, then I see all of the students' work right there. So I can just click on one of them. You can just choose any one. Here's the student's work. And then it's very easy to click through the work with these arrows here. You can go forward and then you can go backwards also. And then I want to talk just a little bit about how you can work in Google Docs just to give students feedback. This student here maybe needs a little bit more work here, maybe some more detail. So I'll just post that comment. And then I'd like to give them a specific comment. So I'll highlight this here, click on the plus sign, and then I can write a specific comment on the right. I'm kind of missing some room there because of that panel. So I'll just click on this arrow down below. See the arrow that's down at the bottom here, click on that, and then I've got some more space here that closes the panel. And just write a specific comment and click on the comment button. Now, I want to show you another thing about how to give feedback here. You can click on the document and actually type, but notice that it's kind of green there. That means I'm just suggesting right now. It just adds a suggestion, and he can either click on the check mark that will automatically accept the suggestion and change it, or click on the X to do it himself. Let's talk about that suggestion mode. That is accessed up here. We're in suggesting mode right now. If you click on that, then you have some different options. There's editing mode, where you can just type into the document yourself. And that can be useful sometimes if you're working directly with the student and you just want to help them out a little bit. So there's editing mode, and then also suggesting mode. So we'll click on return to give this back to the student, and he can work on it a little bit more. And then let's check another document here. Maybe we want to give some more feedback to another student. And this one is looking pretty good. So let's get that side panel back there. Click on that, and then we can actually assign this a grade if we want. And then a comment. Post that comment, and then we can return this one to the student, and the student will get her grade. And that is it for today's Google Classroom presentation. So just want to check in with Shelby. So Shelby, do we have got some questions? I see that I'm looking at your document here.
Yeah, we have tons of questions. I'm trying to organize them by topic. A lot of them are the same question that was asked many times.
Okay.
I tried to organize them in order of what seemed the most urgent, and then some of it you also went over after the questions had been asked.
Okay. So since you're familiar with them, Shelby, do you want to take a stab at answering some of those questions?
Sure. Yeah. I can also turn my video on so I'm not just a ghost here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. So the one question that a lot of folks were asking was, what are the different ways to add people to Google Classroom, especially given challenges of not having access to parent email addresses if you don't have that contact information. So the way that I added my students, and this is also really effective if you teach younger students, I teach second grade. And so even if my students did have access to their email account, that doesn't really seem like the most efficient way to add them because it's just too many steps. So you can directly add your students to Google Classroom. When you go to add students, there's an option to just add their email addresses. And even though elementary students in OUSD don't have access to an email account, they do have an email address, and it's what they use to log into Clever or to log into Chromebooks. So this takes a few minutes to do manually if you don't have a spreadsheet somewhere with your students' email addresses, but it should only take about 5 or 10 minutes. If you just start typing in each student's name or their email address, which is s_firstname.lastname@ousd.org, you can put those in manually. And then when your students log into Google Classroom for the first time, if they haven't used it this year, they will see an invitation to join your Google Classroom, and then they'll automatically be added to it. So you can bypass the step of emailing the parents directly, and as long as you have a way to let the parents know to open up Google Classroom, your students will be able to access it automatically. Another question, and Kelleth, I think you might need to answer this one. A lot of folks were asking about student email addresses, and I think for some folks that was just because they were wondering how to add students to Google Classroom, so hopefully what I just described kind of bypasses that step. But what I've heard is that at some sites, the entire site is asking for the email addresses to be turned on so that teachers can communicate that way. Are you able to speak to that?
So yes, I am. So we recently, so high school students should have access to email. Middle schools, we recently turned on email for all middle school students and teachers. Just did that right at the beginning of the closures. There are cyber safety issues related to turning on emails for elementary students, so we are not doing that as a policy right now. There is, however, within Google Classroom, there are options for communicating with students. You can send private comments between students and teachers. but not from student to student. So that's where we're at right now.
Another question that came up a few times was for prep teachers. How should they access Google Classroom? At my site, the prep teacher teaches science, and she just created her own Google Classroom and then added all of the elementary classroom teachers at our site as additional teachers to her classroom. So if you go to the People tab of Google Classroom where you can add students, there's also an option to add additional teachers. And then she had each of the teachers at our site go in and add all of our students individually. So she has a Google Classroom now that has all of the students at our school, and she's posting grade level specific content there. If you're a prep teacher, you could also have different Google Classrooms for each grade level, or you could just get added as an additional teacher on each of the classroom teachers pages, and then you could post directly in the existing classroom pages. So there are a couple of different ways that you can set that up. And when we send out, I think, Khalith, were you planning on turning this document into an FAQ that we're sending out to folks?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, so I can work on some more detailed instructions for how to do that. But prep teachers, you have a couple of different options. And same goes for team teaching. A couple people were asking about team teaching. If you go to the People tab of Google Classroom, you can just add additional teachers there. Someone asked about creating folders for subject matter, but I think, Kelly, you went over that at some point after that question was asked. There were a bunch of different questions related to accessibility. So a couple folks were asking about how to use Google Read and Write with Google Classroom. Kelly, can you answer that one?
I actually don't know much about like how they integrate. We'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay. And then another related question was, can the platform language be changed to Spanish? I don't know the answer to that.
Not sure about that either, but we can try to find out. Good questions.
So regarding the platform language being changed to Spanish and also the read and write stuff, I think that stuff is mostly handled by the student's device. So if they're running the translation feature on Google Chrome, then it can translate to Spanish. At least that's how I've seen certain students in my class do it.
Thanks for that input. Thank you.
Another question someone asked was, how can we post accommodated or modified assignments and tasks for students with IEPs in our classes? And I think, Khalith, you went over this at some point, but when you post any kind of assignment, there's an option. It automatically, the default is that you're posting to all of your students, but you can also uncheck all of those and just check the box for specific students if you want to post assignments for a particular student. And then a lot of folks were having questions about lower elementary. I teach second grade, and I've been able to use Google Classroom so far pretty effectively with my students. One way that I made it easier for them to navigate was I made screen sharing videos, or just one screen sharing video kind of going through all of the different features of Google Classroom and explaining how we were going to use it. And then I sent that out to all of my family so that the kids had at least some basis to work off of. So you can make those individually for your own class and show sort of how you're setting yours up. And you can do that using QuickTime on your computer. It's pretty easy. We can include instructions for how to make screen sharing videos. And then
Shelby, can I ask,
yeah.
Would you be willing to share some of the resources? I know that you're working on some of those.
For sure. Yeah, I think, Khalith, I'm going to need your help blurring out the names like you did in yours. Otherwise, obviously, I can't just share that to everybody. But I'd be happy to share mine. Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of questions specific to kindergarten and first grade accessibility. Some folks were asking how younger children could upload pictures of their work if they're doing work on paper. Khalith, can you answer that one?
That could be something that would be done in Google Docs, for example. So just using it in a Google Doc, any student, as long as the tricky thing right now is just that we don't know what the device situation is for students, and a very common problem is that they can't get the camera working on a certain device. But within Google Docs or any of those, like Google Docs, Google Slides, if you insert an image, you can choose the option for the device's camera. but again, that might be a little bit tricky.
That was, I think, kind of it for the accessibility questions and stuff related to younger students. There's also a bunch of questions about assigning work, and one person was asking about how to create hyperdocs. So maybe, Keleth, we could make another tutorial about that. But that, I assume you made a Google Doc and then added some links directly into your Google Doc.
That's right. Then there are some really nice hyperdocs that people make with just links and embedding videos in them. So that's really great. It's really great use of Google Docs and the Google Suite.
Someone else was asking, is it possible to upload PDFs? My assumption about that is if you added it to your Google Drive, then you could include it as a link from your Google Drive. Is that how you would do it, Keleth?
That's correct, Shelby.
Great. Someone was asking, how do we make a live stream and share the link? So I've been doing Zoom morning meetings with my class, and the way I've been giving them access to that is just by including the direct link to the Zoom call in a Google Classroom post. So they know to look for that in the morning. And then they don't have to log in separately or check an email or anything. They can just click a link directly from Google Classroom to get to a Zoom call. And you could also do that. Someone asked, could you do live one-on-one tutoring for students? You could do that the same way. You could post a link directly in the Google Classroom to the Zoom call. And depending on how comfortable you are with this platform and how you want to use it, I know some folks were asking questions about, since we have so many different apps through the district, how do we expect our families to keep track of all of this? And the way that I've been able to manage that so far is just by, my students are using Zern and some other online resources, but all of the assignments that I'm giving to them are through Google Classroom, and all of the links that they use to get to those are through Google Classroom. So I'm trying to funnel as much as I can through the Google Classroom so that they're having to do less navigating on their own through the different EdTech apps. Hang on, I gotta go to a different room. Keleth, I'm looking through here trying to figure out if there are any more questions that I missed. A couple of people had questions about authentication and setup, like can they log in through Clever? Keleth, can you talk about how Clever is related to Google Classroom?
So Clever, well, basically in Clever, it's basically just a link to Google Classroom. So there's no kind of automatic sign-on. But if students are signed into Clever, then they're already signed in to their accounts. So all they have to do is just click on that link, because there is a Google Classroom link in Clever for everybody. So they just click on that, and that will go to Google Classroom. But it's the same as just clicking on any link that would go to Google Classroom.
Someone else asked that they said they tried making a Google Classroom account with their personal email, but then it said the class code was invalid. My understanding is that in order to add students with OUSD email addresses, we have to do it from an OUSD account. Is that true, Keleth?
That's correct.
Okay. Someone else asked if they could add a fake student. I already asked you that, and Keleth, you said no.
Right.
But they said this would allow me to archive work so that Google Classroom doesn't get flooded with an unending list of work in each of the sections. Is there another way to archive work or to make that more organized for students?
I'm not sure about that. We might have to look into that question.
Okay. What I've thought about doing for my students, because I got feedback from a couple of them this morning that there are just so many assignments on there now that it's hard to manage, is I was thinking of just making another folder at the very bottom of our Google Classroom to just put old assignments in, so that it's just at least in another place away from where they're currently working on. Mm-hmm. A couple people were asking about how to upload your own videos to Google Classroom. Everybody with an OUSD email account has your own, you all have your own YouTube channels. So if you make videos for lessons or anything like that, or read alouds for your students, you can upload them to YouTube, and then somewhere on your YouTube account, I can't remember how I did this, but you need to change the settings on your YouTube account so that all of your videos are approved for OUSD. Otherwise, your students won't be able to access them. But once you do that, then you can directly link YouTube videos into any of your Google Classroom assignments.
Yeah, we could probably have just a whole training on using YouTube, because it's actually a really great resource. And you can create YouTube videos on your phone and upload them to your account on your phone. And that's one way that a lot of teachers are already interacting with their students, maybe just a message to your students. My wife is teacher librarian at MLA. She's been doing read alouds in Spanish for her students, and a lot of people are watching them. So that's a really great way just to kind of reestablish or maintain that personal connection with your students.
The other, hang on, there was one more I missed. Oh, a lot of and you went over this toward the end of the training, but a lot of the early questions, Kelleth, were about just different ways that teachers can communicate with their students and give feedback on work. Like, for example, I've been posting a couple of different optional, I mean, everything's optional, but different writing assignment options. And then at first it was hard because I didn't want to go through every single document to see if students had worked on it or not. And so what I've started telling them is, if there's something that you want feedback on, if you comment on the assignment saying, you know, hey, Ms. Ziesing, can you read this? Then I see that right away, and I can go in and add comments on their Google Docs the way that Kelleth was showing. And I think those were all of the main questions. Some of them were pretty specific, and I tried to follow up with those people in the chat. Kelleth, do you see any more on here that we missed?
I don't see any, but you know, we can take a closer look at the document, and we'll work on getting the questions kind of organized and well answered and posting them on Teacher Central. And we're going to work on, we'll post this training on Teacher Central, and then Shelby's been working on some other resources, videos, lessons about Google Classroom. So we'll work on that as well. Okay. So Shelby, thank you very much for stepping up and helping to run this training, answering the questions. Really appreciate that a lot. So just to return to a point that I was making before, we're really right now we're making this up as we go along, okay? And expectations right now should just be do what you can do. All right, nobody can reasonably ask you to just make the transition to online learning. Do the best that you can do. Collaborate. Get ideas from your colleagues. We'll be here to support you as much as you can. We're with more trainings and more resources, but we're making it up as we go along. And just reach out if you have any questions or need anything. All right. So thank you everybody for joining today. Really appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
the training posted just so I can pass it on to the
Team.
Thank you.
Thank you.